At Life Hack Coaching, we help women over 35 to balance hormones naturally, boost metabolism, and lose weight sustainably. Hey everyone, I've got Amy with me here today, and Amy is a psychic medium, spiritual life coach, and sacred space holder for women seeking more fulfillment and deeper meaning in life. I met Amy a couple of years ago when I was looking for something, I guess. I was going through a little bit of different time of my life, experiencing a little bit of anxiety and looking for calming my nervous system down. And that's how I came across of Amy's retreat in Fiji, where I went, and it was fantastic. It was amazing and really enjoyed my time and really enjoyed getting to know Amy and her practices. So I thought it would be a great idea to get her here today and have a little bit of chat, because she made a bit of an impact in my life, and because I work with a lot of women, especially struggling with hormonal changes, anxiety, depression, all of that stuff. Amy has her own story to tell as well about all of that. So I thought it would be a great idea to get Amy on call here today and just have a little bit of chat and brainstorm and things like that. So, hi, Amy.
Hello. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction.
That's
And
good.
I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, fantastic. So you've been into spirituality since you were a kid. You always were dreaming, reading cards. What is the moment from back then that really kind of sparked your connection to all those things?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I remember very early on having really vivid dreams and really vivid imagination. Just it was very natural for me that I now know as clairvoyance, but that visual aspect and that kind of connection to something greater. And I was so lucky because my mum was so open, but also all the women in my family. So I had a lot to do with my maternal grandmother growing up. And she was a very Catholic woman, but also always had crystals around, talked about past loved ones and signs and visits from them. And it always seemed very natural to me. And it wasn't until I was a little bit older, maybe even sort of pre-teens, that I realized that not everyone had the same sort of visual connection, the same spiritual connection, because it just felt so natural. And it was such a natural dialogue within my family.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, you used to be a nurse, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
How was it going from nursing to becoming psychic medium and spiritual coach? That's quite a big change. So how does your nursing background play into your spiritual journey now?
Yeah, well, with my nursing, it was interesting because I really wanted to be a midwife. I really wanted to bring lives into the world. My parents are funeral directors, and so they sort of are at the other end of the spectrum of taking people out to the next side, whereas we're not taking people out. That sounds like they're assassins, but helping people cross over to the other side, whereas I really wanted to bring lives into the world. And so I started my nursing with the intention of becoming a midwife, but I ended up working in gynecology, maternity, women's health, and then ended up as a wild child nurse supporting mums in the community. And I really loved that. I love supporting the mums becoming mothers and also the beautiful brand new souls into the world. But I always felt like there was something missing or something more that I really wanted to do or wanted to support in a deeper way. And so I had yoga practice as a teenager. I had my astrology as a teenager. And through my early 20s, I became a Reiki healer, and also I did my yoga teacher training. And so as I was nursing, I had this sort of, I suppose you could call it this hobby side, that I was doing my Reiki and my yoga. And it really felt like I couldn't quite pinpoint what was missing, but I knew that it had to do with the spiritual side of me. But the more I explored the spiritual side, the more I saw the correlation that was what was missing in nursing and in my job. And so it was quite interesting because although the two feel quite different, they are quite similar and they go hand in hand quite beautifully. And also in my nursing, what I recognized was so many of the nurses and so many of the midwives had this incredible intuition when it came to working with their patients, this amazing connection to their instincts.
Yeah.
And although we weren't taught it in nursing or midwifery school, there was this unspoken respect of our intuition and our instincts when it came for the care of a patient, the care of a mother and a baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really, really loved that.
That's awesome. You've been through a little bit of postnatal anxiety and depression yourself. And you mentioned that you found a peace in your spiritual practices. So how did these practices help you during the tough times? And how did it lead towards helping other women going through similar struggles?
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think this is such an important subject, and it's becoming more and more common. Is it becoming more and more common, or we're just opening the conversation? So I think it's a fantastic question.
We talk about it more.
Yeah. And that's good. And I always think the more we talk about it, the women after us can have the open dialogue, and then our daughters, our children can have that open conversation as well. So it's so good to talk about it. I found through my postnatal depression and anxiety, it was so difficult. I think the biggest problem is this isolation, but also this high expectation that we as women put on ourselves to be the homemaker, but also the career woman, but also feeling hot in our bodies, and then also maintaining friendships, and then also like it was just trying to be excellent at everything, it's just not the way that it's supposed to be. And I really struggled, and I found that my spiritual practices were my lifeline. And it wasn't a 60-minute yoga practice, because I didn't have 60 minutes. We don't have 60 minutes with a new baby, it just doesn't happen. And so for me, it was the small things. It was the little rituals, the little bits that I could do through the day that were fulfilling. And so it was pulling cards, and that was my goddess deck, that was my tarot deck. It was basically whatever I could find in that moment, to just have a few minutes to breathe, to connect to myself, and then come to a question of, show me what's good about today, or what's my next step. Just a little bite-sized piece of support, help, and guidance. And it also made me feel like I wasn't alone.
Yeah.
So knowing that I had that spiritual support.
Yeah. So you practice gratitude. Like you mentioned, like, show me what's good in today. So you were focusing on positives rather than negatives. That really easy to focus on when you're experiencing anxiety and depression. And it's interesting. It's awesome. Like we talk about it so openly now, because in my culture, there was no depression or anxiety. Like if you're experiencing depression, there was no even word for it. You're just bored. That's what they used to say. And with anxiety, you're just high energy person. There was no anxiety. So I couldn't even, when I was talking to mum about it a couple of years ago, when I was diagnosed with severe anxiety here in New Zealand, I was trying to explain what it is. And she was like, so what are you nervous about? I'm like, I'm not nervous about anything. It's just, that's what it is. I can't even explain this feeling because there was no word for it in our language. I mean,
fascinating.
It's been 20 years I've been living in New Zealand, so I guess things change in my home country now, I would say. It's probably a little bit more open now, but back then there was no even words for it. So it's great that we talk about it now. Yeah. So when I was looking for something, it's like the sign, your page popped up randomly on Facebook. I wasn't even searching for anything. It's just randomly popped up. And when your retreat popped up, I was like, I have to go. I need to go. I need to find myself, figure out what's wrong with me.
Nothing. You're perfect as you are. And isn't it incredible that, I love how you say it randomly popped up, because I'm a believer in the right things are presented to us at the right time. And it's just for us to open to the signs and to where the universe, to where spirit is guiding us. So I love that. And thank you so much for coming to Fiji. What an incredible group of women to come together, the sisterhood. And I believe that all of the women who came, all of us together, we were supposed to be there together in that moment in time, especially for the 11:11 portal gateway.
Yes. Definitely.
The evening with the medicine woman on the beach.
That was amazing. That was like, a very different experience that I've never experienced in the past. Like it's just reconnecting with nature, reconnecting with yourself and understanding, I guess, yourself and the purpose as a woman. It's amazing. Yeah. So as women's advocate, what are the main issues that you see women dealing with today when it comes to figuring out who they really are? And how do you guide them to reconnect with themselves?
So there are a few common feelings of women, and the biggest one is that loss of connection or loss of identity. And that comes from a lot of different things, but mainly this people-pleasing wound. So feeling like I have to harmonize the people around me. I have to put my needs under the needs of others to create this harmonious environment so that everyone's kind of happy and, holding the emotions of others as their own responsibility. And so it's almost like the consequences of doing that that for a long period of time, that has a lot of women losing their own internal compass of who they are, what they really want, what lights them up, and that sense of individual purpose. And so it's almost like going back to that people pleasing and recognizing those behaviors of keeping the peace.
Yeah.
And it's almost like stripping everything back so that you can look at life and the daily routine of going, where am I saying yes where I should be saying no? Or where am I saying no where I really want to say yes? And so it's really, it's almost like going right back to childhood. And we talk about inner child wounding a lot, but really it's, when did these behaviors start in our childhood and what are they? What was our dynamic in the family? Because that plays a lot of how we relate to people, experiences, how we feel confident to show up, to speak up for ourselves, and the confidence to go after what it is we're really wanting.
Exactly. I found with myself, I've got like a defense mechanism where my answer is always no. How you say, maybe we say yes too much. I feel like I'm saying no.
Yes.
Is a first response when people ask something, I'm like, no. And then I think about it. I'm like, okay, yes. But it's like, I don't know what it is. It's like a wall that you've got this big wall. If I say no, I don't get hurt. If I say no, I don't get disappointed. And that's not healthy either, right? It's, you want to find that balance of yes or no. And yeah. Interesting.
Self-preservation is it's a very natural part of our human evolution to protect ourselves, but it can be, we've done it so much that we become too afraid of hurt, of rejection, of disappointment or disappointing others to say yes or to take that leap. So it's very common, but you're right, it's finding that balance. And also I feel as though we don't give ourselves enough time, or we're critical of ourselves to provide an answer quickly.
No.
Actually saying, can I just have a few days to think about that? Or going, oh, I'm just going to get back to you in an hour or so, and really tune in to say, is it a yes or a no? What is it?
Yeah. But I think it comes from expectation that since we've got the phone numbers and text and everything, in the past you could write a letter and you wait a month for the answer, right? So the time was a little bit slower, where now everything is so immediate that there's some sort of unspoken expectation that people have to reply right now because they saw your text right now. So it doesn't give you opportunity to say, let me think about it, or anything like they expect. And you feel like they expect you to answer right now. So you feel obligated to give the answer right now. And it might not be the answer you want to give. So you mentioned that you're a yoga teacher. Well, I know that. And Reiki practitioner and certified astrologer. So it's quite a big combo. How does all those different things work together in your coaching style?
Yeah, so my coaching style is very much on the individual. So I create a plan for every individual based on what she's going through, what her goals are. And a lot of the spiritual tools and practices, my education learning over the years, I allow them to arise as they would benefit the woman. And for example, my astrology is fantastic because I will know each client's astrology. So I understand their sun, moon, and rising sign, and that helps me to understand how they're going to feel the emotions, but also how I can best interact with them to get best results, but also to create that bond. Also knowing the cycles of the moon, the zodiac signs that we're under, helps me to understand a collective energy and how different things may be coming up. With different practices such as yoga, I love the energetics of yoga. I love all of yoga, but the chakra system, it's like a mini psychological system within our body. So helping when I'm working with clients going, it sounds like it's predominantly a communication issue in the throat chakra. So there are different energy systems and training. I've done a lot of women education recently as a shamanic woman in Peru with cacao ceremonies and things. So there is a beautiful connection to all the working with the cycles of the year, working with the elements, working with ancestors. So it really,
that's fantastic. That's so interesting.
It is. And you think about how the more we're connected with the natural rhythms of Earth, the more grounded we are, the more we notice what's happening around us and how that might impact us.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about this experience.
Oh, like you, I was guided, and I had postnatal anxiety with both children. So it was when Daisy was young, and I'd just come back from America, and I was feeling like just flat and uninspired, and what's next? And I stumbled upon this shamanic practitioner cacao ceremonialist training, and it's through the Peruvian traditions, particularly in the Andes, in the mountains. And when the conquistadors came and sort of took over South America, the people in the Andes, they were still high up in the mountains, and so their practices were untouched for hundreds of years. So it's sort of like this really preserved, beautiful shamanic practice and culture that is still very much alive and thriving. And they believe that their wisdom is the wisdom of all people, of all humans. And so I really love this openness to share the wisdom and knowledge with everyone who is willing to learn. And it's a beautiful practice and a way of life that is connected to Mother Earth, Father Sky, Grandmother Moon, and it's working and understanding these natural cycles and rhythms, and how to work with plants, how to work with spirit animals, spirit guides, and the most beautiful shamanic ceremonies and practices.
Listening.
I just fall in love every time I'm learning, every time I'm in ceremony, and every time I'm taking a ceremony. I feel like I am sitting around the circle of all the men and all the women who have sat in circle before me and who will sit in circle after me. And so you're really connecting into this ancient energy, but also very much a lineage that we want to bring forward as well as human beings.
How long did you go for?
I've been training for years, and it's something that I really want to take a group over. But yeah, and next year again in April. So it's a sacred pilgrimage to go on, and I believe that every time you connect to a land, you're really connecting to the energy, similar to Fiji, feeling that very feminine energy, that very water element energy of Fiji, and Bali has its own energy as well. Yeah, you're connecting to not only the land, the energy of the people before, and the energy of the group and the people that you're with in that beautiful moment in time.
Oh, I need to know all about it when you put it together. That'll be fantastic. So that's awesome. That's really, really cool. If you have any questions about this podcast or about hormones, weight loss, or just healthier lifestyle, please go to our website at lifehackcoaching.co.nz, or feel free to email me directly, Anastasia, at lifehackcoaching.co.nz.